What is your, I've gotta get the hell out of here, moment? I pulled into a gas station to fill up my car at 4 a.m. on the way to work. The station was well lit and actually pretty busy, so I didn't feel unsafe. I pulled up next to a pump, go out, and just when I put the nozzle in I heard someone trying to get my attention. I turned and it was a guy who had been leaning against the wall of the station when I pulled in. There was a van nearby him. He asked if I could call his girlfriend to come pick him up. I called one number, voicemail box full. He gave me a second number. Mailbox also full. Then he asked if I had jumper cable and if I could give me a jump. I agreed, thinking the van he was nearby was his vehicle. Then, after I agree, he tells me the story of how he got there. According to him, his car had broken down at another gas station up the street. He said it was closed so he couldn't get any help, so he borrowed a bike from someone and rode it down to this gas station. Then he went into the gas station to leave the bike there. As soon as he started walking away, my brain started racing and pointing out all the things that didn't add up about this story. First, all I could imagine in those voicemail boxes were a bunch of people going, "Your boyfriend is stuck at the gas station." Then, I thought about how in the hell would he legitimately borrow a bike from someone at a closed gas station in the middle of the night in the middle of winter. At that point, I decided it was time to get the fuck out of there. Thankfully, I hadn't pumped any gas yet, so I quickly put it back on the pump, got into my car, and tore out of there. I actually felt a little bad because what if he actually needed help, but then I reminded myself about him borrowing a bike in that situation, how he was trying to get me to a dark, secluded secondary location. This dude was absolutely trying to rob/murder me. I was visiting London and just got out of sports bar by myself at 3 a.m., drunk as shit. I decide to walk from the bar, near Leicester Square, to my hotel, near King's Cross, despite not knowing exactly where I am or how to get to the hotel. I start walking in a direction and within a minute I'm walking down a rather wide shopping street when I see two bald guys coming the other way, both pretty much built brick shithouses, and looking like they want to start shit. They hadn't spotted me yet but one guy suddenly walks to the side of the street and just flat out punches the steel grate in front of a shop entrance as hard as he can. I pretty much did a straight 180, double-timed it back to the bar, and asked the nice bouncers to get me a cab. Cab drops me off in front of the hotel and I go to bed without getting the shit kicked out of me first. Oh boy, I have another one. My ex-best friend convinced me to go to a concert with her. I told her I couldn't because I had a long drive the next morning and didn't want to waste gas or go to bed too late, and she said it was fine, she would drive and would get me home right after the concert. Went to the concert, it was fine. I was ready to go home but she told me she wanted to go to an after-party with the band because her crush would be there. I agreed because she really wanted to get with this guy, the chances of it happening seemed high, and I wanted her to be happy. Turns out the after-party was at a decent hotel. Underage kids were straight up walking in with handles of alcohol and it was really obvious what was going on. The receptionist was eyeing everyone but nobody gave a fuck. My friend and I got to the room and we were the only girls there. Around 40 drunk college guys and 2 girls both under 110 pounds. I'd never experienced being looked at like a juicy steak until that moment. I told her we had to go but she was hellbent on staying with her crush. I couldn't convince her, so I called my mom, the most awkward phone conversation of my life, and had her pick me up. Turns out the receptionist called the cops soon after I left and the party got broken up. I think some people got charged. Last week, I was visiting Los Angeles with my 22-year-old daughter. I had to fill the tank of the rental car. I googled the cheapest gas and waited in line. There was a scummy homeless man yelling. Clearly mentally ill. When we got to the pump was broken. You know, when you fill 10 cents of gas and it stops. It took a full minute to get $1 of gas when the homeless man came up to us. He was yelling, "Now this is a nice car." I grabbed the pump from my daughter and said, "Hit the road," and we drove off. Funny thing is, my daughter wasn't scared because she was listening to what the man was yelling about. Apparently, the homeless man was being harassed by another driver. The other driver told him not to touch his car. The car was a piece of shit and the homeless man was making fun of him. "OH. Don't touch this car. Your car is a piece of shit." That's when he came to our car. "Now this is a nice car. I won't touch this one. But yours is a piece of shit, you asshole." So it ended up being pretty funny. I panicked for nothing. I told this once before, but when I was about 8 years old, I was in the car with my parents. They were arguing, which they did a lot, but being trapped in that metal box with both of them screaming back and forth became too much. We stopped at a red light and I unbuckled my seatbelt and got out of the car and started running. My mom, who was in the passenger seat, ran out after me, and after he pulled over the car my dad did as well. They caught up to me and their attitudes completely changed. They promised they wouldn't fight again, a promise they broke time and time again until their divorce, but they never did it again in the car. It was years ago, when I was in 4th grade. My parents used to get into fights all the time, especially when my dad was drinking. They'd start yelling and that would turn into actual fist fights. At this time we were living in a small trailer, and the room I shared with all 3 of my siblings was at one end of the trailer, near the back door. So my dad comes home drunk, mom is pissed and starts yelling, and it escalates from there. Being in a small trailer, everything sounds so close and terrifying, and as the oldest of 4 I felt the need to protect my siblings, but I didn't know what to do. After a while my mom starts screaming my name at the top of her lungs, and I can still hear my dad screaming too, and I knew that I needed to get myself and my siblings out of there ASAP. I ushered them out of the room, down the hallway, and out the back door, and told them to head to our aunt's place, who lived a few trailers down. My mom was still screaming for me, and all I knew to do was yell, "I got them out, Mom, we're leaving," before also going out the back to my aunt's. I don't recall ever being that scared. Cops came, they both went to jail and were both out in a couple days and acted like nothing ever happened. A few years ago I brought the incident up to my mom. I told her that I thought she was screaming at me to get my siblings out of the house, and that's why I had. She told me she was screaming my name cause she was scared and wanted help and didn't know who else to call for. I felt so bad cause I didn't help her, but there's not really much I could have done. I gave my ex a ride to his court hearing for hitting my daughter. I pointed out to him inside that there was a sign that said no cell phones and that I would run our phones out to the car, and she right back. I felt like my heart was going to break my sternum, and I had tunnel vision as I called my sister and told her I needed her and her husband to come with their pickup truck to my house right now because I had a small window to get as much of my daughter's and my possessions out of my house before he was released from court. Just as we were wrapping up I saw him running down the street like Usain Bolt right for me. I yelled for them to drop what they had and get in the truck and go. Just as I closed my car door he runs up and tries to smash it open. I fumbled with my keys to get the engine started. He then stands in front of my car blocking my path. I dismissed my burning desire to run him over and threw it in reverse and smashed the gas pedal down the block to the next street. I'd like to say things got better after that. But that was just the beginning of the worst year of my life. Now I'm past all of that and living a better life. Happened a few hours ago. Was in the park with my younger brother just playing football, having nice time. Suddenly I see a man looking over in our direction, however I can't be too sure because I don't have my glasses and I don't want to scare myself for no reason. He's carrying an orange bag so it's easy to see him. I ignore him and brother and I start walking around randomly, not following the path, backtracking, just not walking logically, if that makes sense, kicking the ball to each other. The last time I went to this park on the 1st, a man of the same build/ethnicity followed me, so I felt myself getting paranoid. This man kept his distance, but for instance we went into the basketball area and he would come to the entrance and lean against the gate just watching us. He could go behind the trees, it was clear he knew his way around this park, and follow us, which I wouldn't notice if it wasn't for his bag. I wanted to confront him, but I was with my younger brother and didn't want to cause trouble. I wasn't really scared but more angry and frustrated. The man suddenly starts getting braver and walking faster towards us, and so we decide to quickly run home even though we were only out for 15 minutes. Probably walking in Gastown, in Vancouver, BC. My mom and I were looking for her sister, missing, homeless, that whole date's life. Dude in his 30s or so walks up to us, dressed normally, sort of business casual, and we look up and are about to say hi, when he covers his eyes, and starts counting down really slowly and drawn out. Nope. Big ol' nope. We backed up and he followed, eyes still covered. He got to 4 or 5 and my mom just grabbed my arm and yanked me away towards people. The downtown east side of Vancouver is something else. A really tight-knit family of homeless mentally ill possible drug-using men and women. Many by choice, but not all. My nanny used to live in a sort of hotel there, so I know it well, but that rattled me. I have leukemia. I completed 5 months of chemo in October, but my white count has been low since then, so I am high risk for infection. My wife just gave birth a few weeks ago, but had severe preeclampsia and had to be put on blood pressure meds. I went to pick up dinner and on my way home figured I'd also grab her meds at the pharmacy real quick. Except a ton of people had the same thought, and I found myself like 20 people back in line. I was set to wait, wife definitely needed her meds, until I hear coughing. I look up and a 2-year-old kid is hacking everywhere. That is no bueno for me. Yep, had to nope the hell out of that line and send my mother-in-law to the pharmacy for wife's meds. TLDR, I'm a 35-year-old, tattooed bearded man afraid of small children. When I first moved to where I'm living now, it's across the river from a college town/city with a main street that is littered with restaurants and bars. So one night a couple friends and I went out and decided to bar hop. Nothing crazy, just wanted to check out the different places. Walked into one hole in the wall joint with only a handful of people in there. Everybody's head turned and looked at us like we were from another planet. Weird vibe immediately. Bartender approaches slowly, asking how we're doing and what he can get us. We order our round of drinks. Bartender very slowly says, "Is that all?" Again, weird vibe, but whatever. Random guy, later found out to be the owner, comes and sits next to us and starts chatting us up. Where we're from, what we're doing in the area, if we're cool. Lots of weird conversation starters. At this point, we want out but our drinks haven't come back yet. So we get our drinks and try to keep to ourselves. Guy keeps asking if he can get us anything. Anything at all. Off the menu. It's at this point, I realize that the 2 women at the other end are doing coke off the bar. There's also now 2 large men standing against the wall right behind us, just grilling us. Not wanting to make a scene, we all shared a "let's get the fuck out of here" look, talked amongst ourselves for a minute, finished our drinks as fast as possible, paid and left. The owner was trying to talk to us the entire time we're paying, making our way to the door, trying to keep us there as the 2 large men slowly close in. We got the fuck out and said nothing until we hit the other side of the street. When I was 19, after graduating from my 2-year college, I was studying film. A professor that I, and many other students, looked up to a lot asked me to travel with him to Colombia to finish a documentary he was working on. Having traveled with him internationally in the past for class trips, I thought it would be a great opportunity. It was an all-expense-paid trip, so how could I not? So I traveled from New York to South America all by myself, and once I got there he gave me a tour of our Airbnb that went like this. So here's the office, kitchen, living room, bathroom, and bedroom. There's just one bed, I hope that's okay. I tried to keep cool and slept head to toe the first night. The next morning he sits me down to talk, and after his long intro he finally gets to the point. He asked that the next part stay between us and started with, "So I've only ever been with my wife." That was the moment that all the hairs on my body stood up and I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here update. So that evening I told him that while I was flattered, I wasn't interested and thought it was wildly unfair for him to do that to me. I tried to be polite because I didn't know what to expect at that point. The last thing I wanted was for him to get violent. He backpedaled the entire time, all of which I have an audio recording of, and I slept on an armchair in the living room the rest of the stay. Also for reference, my professor looked like a small Venezuelan Gandalf. Long white beard and all. I also had a family friend that lived in the city, so he picked me up my last night and took me to the airport. I'd never felt so safe in my life. I'm black, I live near Alabama. A friend was having a party, but she was using a different friend's house as the venue. The house was deep in the woods, and this man at the gas station was being friendly and joking with us. Everything seemed fine until he said something like, "Don't forget the clan meeting is tonight at 7. I'm kinda blacked out for a second because I'm sure he meant something else, but I got a bad vibe. Edit, a response here made me think it could have been a friendly guy warning me that it was happening. Still not sure, but I know when to get my butt out of a situation. A company I was working at got bought out by another company. They tried to make us sign agreements that we wouldn't work in the industry for 2 years after working for our company. So like, I'm not allowed to have a job in my field for 2 years if they lay me off. A bunch of us refused to sign it, but nothing happened. Then people in management started getting moved around, and they put someone in charge of me who was really incompetent. When a big company buys a small company with a lot of name recognition, I can see the writing on the wall. I got another job and got the hell out of there.